today I do have a couple of questions that came forward from the emails, so I will cover those today. And what I'm going to be doing is covering 4 major areas that you want to measure on your dog. So we have a lovely stuffed dog here, and its proportions are not exactly what a regular dog would look like, but it'll give you an idea of how to measure your dog. So what you want to work with is a soft measuring tape, a tailor's measuring tape, one that's flexible. You don't want to be working with a ruler or a carpenter's measuring tape, one of those hard metal ones, because they're not flexible. You really want flexible. And there are 4 key measurements that I really like to work with when I'm making a basic dog coat. Once you get into more complex coats, you're going to have some more measurements. But today, we're going to keep it to the 4 basic measurements, and that is neck circumference, chest circumference, the neck to withers measurement, and the full back measurement. If you have those 4 measurements, you can work with pretty much any basic dog coat, any regular dog coat. Those will take care of most of the measurements that you want to do. So I'm going to start with the neck circumference. So again, you're going to take your measuring tape, put it around the neck of the dog, and you're going to want to measure approximately where the collar sits. Now, if you don't have a collar on your dog, not a big deal. Just put it where a collar would normally sit. If you do have a collar on your dog, you might want to put that measuring tape over the collar as well, because that does actually add extra width to the circumference. The other thing that you want to do is put 2 fingers underneath your measuring tape so that it just gives a little bit of wiggle room. You're not skin tight or fur tight right up to the dog's body itself. It gives them a little bit of wiggle room. So that's how you measure the neck circumference. The next one I'll do is the chest circumference, because it's pretty close to the same thing. Now, when you're doing the chest circumference, you're going to run the measuring tape right around the full circumference of the dog's chest. And you want to do that in the largest, the widest part of the dog's chest. Now, all dogs are different. This particular dog has no shape whatsoever. It's probably very similar to what a lab would be like. Labs have a very straight kind of torso. Their chests are not a lot bigger than their waists are. Scout, who is my dog, she is a poodle mix. So she's got a really deep, deep chest and a very skinny little waist down by the back legs. But when you're measuring for the chest circumference, the main thing you want to do is find the widest point on their chest, wherever that may be, and then you take your measurement. And again, the most important thing, you want to put a couple of fingers underneath the measuring tape just to give yourself a little bit of room. And then you take that measurement. I got 14 here, 14 inches. Take that measurement and write it down. The next measurement is your back measurement. So we're going to start from that same place that you did the collar measurement, right at where the collar would, right where your collar would normally sit on a dog. And you're going to measure straight across the spine, running from the collar all the way down to the base of the tail. You don't want to go to the end of the tail. You just basically want to go to the base of the tail where the dog's bum starts. So you're going to run from the collar on the neck all the way down to the base of the tail where the bum starts on the dog. And the last measurement, which is so key to absolutely everything, I think this is one of the most critical measurements, is the neck to withers measurement. You're going to take a line that runs from behind the front legs on the dog and run that straight, the imaginary line, right up to the spine. That is the withers point on the dog. And these are their dog's shoulders. That's the point between the neck and that withers are the shoulders on the dog, and that's where all the pivoting action happens. That's where their legs move, and that is where your belly, where whatever kind of a coat you're making, or a top or a dress or whatever it may be, that's where you want the sleeves or the armholes or the belly wrap to start. You want to have it going past that neck to withers point. So how you measure the neck to withers point is, again, you start from where the collar would normally sit on the dog, and you draw that imaginary line up from behind the front legs and then take your measurement. So the line goes up to the spine from behind the front legs, and you take the measurement on the spine from between the collar, where the collar would sit, and that point where the withers are. So that gives you the point where you want, on a basic coat, that would be where you're going to add your belly wrap, because that tells you where you want to start that part of the garment that you're making. I think that's it for the four real measurements that the critical measurements that I always take when I'm making a basic dog coat or a dog dress or something, but something that's really basic. Those are the 4 key measurements you want. A couple of questions that came in that I want to talk about is just how to troubleshoot when things aren't looking right, when you've made the garment and you put it on the dog and it just doesn't fit right. This was one of the questions. Someone mentioned to me that the dog coat was pinching underneath the arms. It felt like it was way too tight underneath the arms here. And the reason for that, again, comes back to that critical neck to withers point. So it's possible that you just measured that wrong, or all you want to do is just set that belly band or whatever wraps around that point underneath the arms, you want to set that further back. But then, conversely, the other problem could be that it's too far back. And if you find that the jacket is slipping around, it's not setting on the dog's torso, and it's moving around on the dog and it's sliding all over, or what's happening is that it's sliding forward, because that typically is where the dog's jacket will go. It slides forward. What's happening is that the collar then becomes too loose and it's not fitting properly on the neck and the collar. So what's going on is that belly band is not sitting in the right place. So if it's too far back, if you've measured this neck to withers point and it's too far back, then that's going to be making that belly band sitting back here, further back on the body towards the hind quarters, and that means that it's not sitting properly. And then what happens when the dog starts moving around and running and having fun is it will slide forward. The whole coat slides forward. The collar gets too big. It gapes around the head and the collar area, and you also will get a shorter coat. It's going to be cutting off around the bum area, and you're not getting full coverage on the back because the whole coat has slipped forward. So you want to make sure that that positioning is correct. And sometimes that's something you just have to play with. One of the things that I always suggest is when you're first making the first outfit, whatever it may be for your dog, do it in a muslin fabric or some scrap fabric that you have around, just so that you can play around with it and make sure that you get that right. If you're doing a coat that's got some really nice fabric, and let's say you're lining it and you're putting in piping in it, you don't want to do that for your first test. You want to just take a piece of fabric that's similar in weight to what you are making your final product in, and then make it really quickly. Don't put the lining on, don't put the piping on, don't put all those extra bells and whistles, and you don't even need to put the closures on. If you're putting Velcro on it, don't even bother Velcroing it. You can just pin it, safety pin it onto the dog. Just pin it on so that you can get that sense of how does it fit. Watch them move around. Just watch how they wear it. Does it slide forward? Is the collar gaping? Is it coming down so that it's not covering the back? Or is it coming down too far so it's actually covering too much of the back? What can also happen when the belly band is too close here underneath the arms, if you got the too short a neck to withers measurement and it's too tight underneath the arms, it will sometimes slide back if it has enough room. If there's enough room in the collar area and that whole front section on the dog, if there's enough room there, in order for the coat to kind of sit properly, it starts sliding back, and then you get it draping over the back side of the dog's rear end. So muslins are your best friend. Like, start with some scraps and just figure it out before you work with your final materials. One last thing that I want to mention is, I'm just flipping my dog upside down here so that you can see the belly. If you are working with a male dog and you've got this belly band that's running underneath the belly of the dog, you want to make sure that you're not making it too wide so that it's getting in the way of the dog going to the bathroom, because the male dog's because of their anatomy, it can get in the way of that wrap. So you just want to measure if you have a male dog, make sure you kind of take that into account as well, and don't make the section that runs underneath the belly too long so that it gets in the way of that. So hopefully, for those of you, the person that sent in the question around that problem with it being too tight, hopefully that answers your question and gives you some ideas of how you might fix that. If it doesn't answer your questions or you have any more questions, please feel free to fire me an email off and let me know what your questions are, or any other questions that any of you might have, and I'd be more than happy to cover them for you. Until next week, I will be here live at 11 o'clock Pacific time every Thursday, so check back next week, and look forward to seeing you again. Okay, bye-bye.